United Nations Charter and the Constitutive Act of the African Union guaranteeing the right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination. On the situation in the Middle East, the two sides expressed concern over the ongoing hostilities in Gaza and reiterated their strong support for a two-state solution that guarantees the Palestinian people their legitimate right to an independent and sovereign state. Algiers and Accra also stressed the need for a comprehensive reform of the United Nations system, especially the Security Council, in line with the Isolwini and Sirte declarations to ensure a fair representation of African countries in global governance. The Minister of War, Veterans and Right Holders, Raid Abega, has met Vong Hong Nam, son of Vietnamese leader General Vong Nguyen Giap, and a member of the International Association of Friends of the Algerian Revolution. This meeting, held on the sidelines of the ceremony commemoration the 50th anniversary of the liberation of South Vietnam and the country's unification, was an opportunity for both sides to discuss the common struggle of the two friendly peoples, Algerian and Vietnamese, for freedom and independence. On the occasion, the two parties also discussed certain festivities organized in Algeria to mark the 70th anniversary of the glorious Revolution of Liberation, notably the Great Military Parade near Jameh el-Jazair. The Secretary-General of the General Union of Algerian Workers, Amar Takshdud, has called on workers in all sectors to mobilize to defend the supreme interest of the country and consolidate the domestic front in order to thwart any threats targeting Algeria. In a speech delivered at the meeting he chaired at the People's House here in Algiers to mark International Labour Day in the presence of the Minister of Labour, Employment and Social Security, Faisal Ben Taleb, Amr Takshduk said that workers in all sectors are called upon to mobilise and participate in national efforts to preserve the supreme interest of the country and the gains achieved, and to consolidate the home front in the face of the malicious attempts targeting our country. Mr. Takshduk held the content of the message of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, addressed to workers on the occasion of the International Labour Day, hailing the profound political, economic and social significance of this message. Interior Minister Ibrahim Marad has called for the sports festival in the capital, or hosted by the capital yesterday, to be generalized to the country's other provinces to enable young people from all regions to show their talents in this field. In a statement to the press at the end of his visit to several of the venues hosting the festivities of this second edition of the festival, the minister called for this type of event to be extended to other provinces, pointing out that Algeria has a wealth of potential and sites waiting to be exploited for the benefit of its citizens. In this respect, Mr. Murad stressed the need to create spaces where citizens, especially young people, can let their talent flourish, thereby contribute to improving the quality of life. Moving to our Palestinian file, at least 9 Palestinians, including women and children, were killed and several others were injured in new raids of the Zionist occupation army against neighborhoods in the center and north of the Gaza Strip. Local sources cited by the Palestinian news agency Wafa reported that the warplanes of the Zionist occupation army targeted the neighborhood of Sheikh Rabdouan and Beit Lahia, as well as of the El Zaytun and Tulkman in the center of the Palestinian enclave, stating that the deadliest attack was recorded in the refuge camp of El Borej with 7 martyrs. Simultaneously, the Zionist occupation conducted numerous raids against the Khan Yunis and Rafah district south of Gaza, making many injuries and enormous material damage. Yesterday, at least 29 Palestinians died in Zionist bombardments on Gaza, according to the civil defense. More than 423,000 Gazans have been forced to move in the recent weeks by the relentless aggression waged by the Zionist occupation army without finding a safe place to take shelter, denounced the UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric. More details in this report by Said Bouhassi.
Stefan Dujarric told a press conference that recent strikes by the Zionist occupation army have reportedly hit residential buildings, affecting the accommodation of displaced persons, particularly in Rafah and eastern Gaza. On Tuesday, our humanitarian partners estimated that more than 423,000 people had been displaced again, with nowhere safe to go in Gaza, said the UN spokesman. He added that the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, has warned that operations continue to be stifled by severe restrictions on movement inside the Gaza Strip, as well as by the Zionist occupation army and attacks that endanger the safety of humanitarian workers and their premises. Noting that most basic necessities are not available while attacks on humanitarian convoys and looting are on the increase, Stefan Dujarric deplored the fact that humanitarian actors on the ground have been unable to recover the remaining stocks of fuel that the population desperately needs. The toll of the Zionist genocidal aggression against the Gaza Strip rose to 52,418 martyrs and 118,091 injured since 7th October 2023 as of yesterday, according to the Palestinian health authorities.
A senior official from the World Health Organization WHO has denounced what is happening in Gaza as an abomination, saying his anger at the inaction to help the people who are victims of a Zionist barbaric genocide. The Deputy Director General of the World Health Organization, Mike Ryan, said during a press briefing that we must ask ourselves the question how much blood is sufficient to meet the political objectives, adding that on Friday we will mark 2 months of total blockade of the Gaza Strip by the Zionist occupation forces. Moving to Syria, the Israeli occupation army has bombed an area near the presidential palace in Damascus, sending a clear signal of hostility toward the Syrian authorities and a willingness to escalate military action in the name of Syria's Druze minority. The occupying army has stepped up its military operation in Syria since Ahmed al-Shara came to power in December, with bombings across the country and ground forces moving it to the southwest while calling for Syria to remain decentralized and isolated. The fourth round of talks between the United States and Iran, which had been due to take place in Rome tomorrow, has been postponed and a new date is due to be set. US sanctions on Iran during the nuclear talks are not helping the sides to resolve the nuclear dispute through diplomacy. Oman, which mediated earlier sessions of the US-Iran talks, said that the next round of nuclear discussions, provisionally planned for May 3rd, would be rescheduled for logistical reasons. Earlier, Iran accused the US of contradictory behavior and provocative statements after Washington warned Tehran of consequences for backing Yemen's Houthis and imposed new oil-related sanctions on it in the midst of nuclear talks. Separately, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Ismail Bagheri said Tehran would continue to engage seriously and resolutely in result-oriented negotiations with the US. In France, several voices from the political sphere and civil society in France continue to criticize the Minister of the Interior, Bruno Retailleau, for his arrogant and irresponsible behavior in the face of the recent murder of a young Muslim in a mosque, and are calling on him to let his place to someone more deserving and more humane. In a statement to members of Abu Bakr Sisi's family who had gathered to follow developments in the case of their son's murder, the Green Party's National Secretary, Marine Tondelier, said she was outraged and shocked to hear that French Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau refused to meet the victim's family. She added that such an action is insensitive, disrespectful, and indecent, stressing that by definition, the role of the Interior Minister is to ensure instructions cohesion. Regretting the persistence of double standards in France, Mrs. Tondelier argued that if Abu Bakr Sisi was a Catholic and had been murdered in a church, Mr. Retailleau would not just have come to the commune next door. Instead, he would have gone into the church, met the family, and spoken much more powerful words. For her part, Deputy Mayor of the 18th Arrondissement of Paris, Mam Yafa, a member of the Association for the Promotion of the Soninke Language and Culture, agreed, saying he was extremely shocked that Retailleau had still refused to meet the victim's family. And again, some 300,000 people demonstrated in France yesterday to mark May Day against the far right, including 100,000 in Paris, where a rally was also held to pay tribute to Abu Bakr Sise, the Muslim who was killed last week in a mosque. Said Bourazi has more.
The leader of the General Confederation of Workers, CGT, Sophie Binet, said that they counted 270 demonstrations across France. Muriel Gilbert, co-delegate for Solidaire, one of the unions behind the call to march, explained that there is not a single employee today who is not worried about the rise in racism. Last year, the CGT counted 210,000 demonstrators in France, including 50,000 in Paris. Racism kills, not to hatred against Muslims, read the placards held by demonstrators gathered in Paris at the call of the association SOS Racisme and the activist Assa Traoré to pay tribute to Abu Bakr Sise and denounce Islamophobia. Yasmina, 52, a civil servant, told local media, "I don't have the impression that we Muslims are heard or represented in the media or the government. If this had been a victim of another religion, another name and another culture, those in charge would have been in support. There is a double standard." In addition to a white march in La Grande Combe, where 22-year-old Cissé was murdered, a rally in memory of the victim and against Islamophobia was organized on Sunday in Paris, and a demonstration took place on Tuesday in Lyon, a large city in central eastern France.
With this last piece of news comes the end of our news bulletin station on Radio Algeria International.
A story in an artwork. A weekly program that tells